Welcome back to the Money and Wealth Show. I'm Sterling Fox. Our special guest this week talking cross-border tax realities is Senta Business Services President David Ingram. And David, the other reality that a lot of us have fantasies, to say nothing of grand designs on buying a little piece of paradise somewhere like Hawaii or California. And it's a great idea, and real estate is darned attractive in the United States right now. But there are just all these little tax and legal realities that we need to check before we go, including for snowbirds, people who want to spend maybe winters in someplace hot and dry. Talk to us about tax implications for people who stay longer than a 2 or 3 week holiday.
Okay, I'm going to put two parts in here.
Okay.
Because somebody might go to the States for 4 months and go to Mexico for 2 months and go to France for a month. What they've got is a real problem because they're going to lose their BC medical. Because to go be a BC resident and keep your BC medical, you can't. You have to be in BC 183 days a year. You have to make your home here and sleep here.
Okay.
So there's a whole other story here, which is BC medical that people have to watch out for. BC medical aside, the United States has what they call the substantial presence test. Substantial presence test takes the days that you're in the States this year, this calendar year, takes 1/3 of the days you were there the year before, and 1/6 of the days you were there the year before that. So let's pretend that you're there for 180 days. You've really counted them. You've made sure you're not there for more than 100.
Hang on to that medical.
I'm going to hang on to the medical, and I'm not going to be in the States for more than 183 days, because everybody knows that if you're in the States for more than 183 days, you got to do a tax return. But you got to recognize under the substantial presence test, you've got 180 days this year. If you were there for 150 days the year before, you got to take 50 days and add them to the 180. Now you're 230 days. You got to file a U.S. tax return. So if you're only there for, say, 150 days this year, 150 days plus 50 days the year before, that's 200. Got to file a U.S. tax return.
Now, let me stop you there.
Yeah.
I'm down, I'm investing in this wonderful little condo on a golf course somewhere hot and dry. I'm not making a dime. In fact, I'm bringing my cash down and contributing to the local economy. There's no income involved.
What a nice guy.
So why would I have to file a tax return
because
if I'm not making any money?
Because those are U.S. rules. You're taxable on your world income if you're there under the substantial presence test.
Oh, so if I'm making money back home in Canada, I could end up paying tax on it in the United States?
Absolutely, because you're taxable on your world income. So when you do this tax return, you can also file a form called an 8840. The 8840 gives you closer connection to another country. But what happens in these situations is that people trying to keep their BC medical or their Alberta medical or their Ontario or Quebec or Yukon, doesn't matter where you're from, trying to keep the medical clean, they make very sure that they're down there just the right length of time. Sometimes they've bought themselves a nicer snowbird place than the place that they still have back in Canada.
That happens.
And because they've got themselves a 5-bedroom place in Phoenix so that their kids can all come and visit, right? Making a long story short, they've got this place down there. They've got a membership at a golf course, so they got a golf cart. And remember, they're coming back to Canada for the winter, or sorry, they're in Canada in the summertime. And they don't have a golf cart, they don't have any of these things. And this one tax man says, David, where's their golf cart? I'm going to tax them there. Because that's where they're living. You get it?
Okay.
So I'm just using, I mean, everybody doesn't have a golf cart.
Does Mexico have the same tax rules?
Mexico has essentially the same tax rules, but they're very inefficient at this moment of catching people on those. The United States is getting really good because on September the 30th, 1996, President Clinton signed an act that gave the INS and the IRS permission to compare figures and at the border. And about March last year, March 2 years ago now, the border people, they trained about 10% of the people on the border now who have the ability to go into the IRS computer and find out whether you, Sterling Fox, who've gone across the border 3 or 4 or 5 times this year, whether you filed your U.S. tax return. And if you're a U.S. citizen, you haven't been filing your U.S. tax return, they're going to catch you at the border now. Big penalties, as we've talked about in the past.
So the bottom line here, as we discussed 6 months ago, and it just keeps coming home time after time, it's a great idea. There's nothing wrong with it, but man, there's a ton of homework that absolutely has to be done before you spend a dime in a foreign market like the United States or Mexico.
Well, if somebody wants to send, if you're thinking about investing down there, if you want to send an email to me at taxman@senta.com, put Sterling Fox in the subject matter and ask for my email on investing in the United States, whether you should have a company, whether you should have this, whether you should have that, working on the property, send it to taxman@centa.com. That's C-E-N-T-A. And we will happily send you a copy of a whole bunch of stuff that will help you.
Now, normally at this time in the program, we pause and go to tax tips from David Ingram, which would be, well, kind of redundant to go to that since you're sitting right here next to me, David. So how about this week's tax tip right here, right now?
Well, you're going to make me do it on live, and I haven't written anything down to anything. I'm going to make it sort of an immigration tax tip.
Okay.
If you're going to buy a piece of property in the States and it's just for you, you can do anything you want to it, and there's no tax consequences on that property until you actually sell it. If you're going to buy a piece of property in the States to rent out or flip or whatever, you can't do so much as hammer a nail, paint a shingle, sweep the front door, or anything. And if it's rented or it's sold, you have a tax liability right now. This year, you have to file a local state return. You have to file a federal 1040-NR. End of story. That's a tax tip.
All right, there we go. David Ingram joining us from CENTA Business Services on his birthday. All the best to you on your big day.
Thank you, Sterling.
And we do appreciate your popping back in for an extended visit, and we'll see you next week for another tax tip. And we'll be right back.
Hi, I'm Larry Ray, President and CEO of American Manganese, Inc. Our project in Arizona is electrolytic manganese. We have a resource of 11 billion pounds, currently trading at $1.40 a pound. Our cost, 44 cents. For more information, go to our site at americanmanganeseinc.com or phone me direct at 604-531-9639.
And that's our program for this week. Our thanks to our special guest, David Ingram. And thank you for joining us. If you have some thoughts about today's program that you'd like to share with us, please send them along to comments@themoneyandwealthshow.com. I'm Sterling Fox. See you next time.
Comments made on the preceding paid commercial program are an expression of opinion only and should not be construed in any manner whatsoever as recommendations to buy or sell any financial instrument at any time.